Hi guys, and welcome to Lost Genre Entitled People, where we review stories about how selfish and egotistical some people can really be, and at the same time, we learn that being entitled doesn't pay. And as logic dictates, let's begin with the first story. This happened to me a few years ago. I had recently moved to the north of Scotland where I now live, and was staying with my mom and stepdad while getting a house sorted. They went away on holiday for a fortnight, so missed all the fun. I came home from work one afternoon, started at 4 a.m. and finished at 1 p.m. to find a car blocking the driveway into my house. Having a small car, I parked at the top of the drive, blocking them in. My parents live out in the sticks on a single-track road, so I couldn't leave my car where it was because I would be blocking the road. After an hour, I saw someone approaching the drive and taking pictures of my car. I went out and confronted them, and the conversation went like this. "Why are you taking pictures of my car?" "Because you parked illegally and blocking my car in. I'm going to call the police if you don't move your car from my neighbor's drive." This is clearly my parents' drive. Did you not think it was odd having to walk out of someone's garden to get to the neighbor's yard? "Well, it wasn't very clear, so can you move so I can get out?" So I get my keys and move, then park my car and think nothing of it. Next morning, I leave for work, and once again I find the same car parked in my parents' drive. This time, I go knock on my neighbor's door and ask him to get his friend to shift it, only for my neighbor to ask, "What friend?" I pointed to the car and told him what had happened yesterday. Turns out, the Pratt wasn't his friend at all, but liked to walk around the woodland path near our houses. 20 minutes later, he finally appears, smirks, and moves before saying, "I'll be parked here tomorrow too." So once again, I go to work at stupid o'clock, and when I get back, lo and behold, the Pratt has parked there again. This time, I decided to teach him a lesson. I had 2 days off, so I went to the shops and got some shopping and a rather large amount of alcohol. Strongbow and Savannah dry cider if you're interested. Got home, parked as close to his car as I could, making sure I was safely off the road. I went inside, made some dinner, and started drinking. About an hour later, there's a banging on the door. "Yes?" "Move your car, it's blocking me in, and my family and I want to go home." I look out, and there's his rather embarrassed looking family sitting in their car. I say, "Sorry, can't," as I took another drink from my cider. Been drinking for a couple of hours, probably over the limit, so I don't want to risk it. "What? Why are you drinking when you knew I'd be wanting to move my car?" "I'm off for the next 2 days, so I fancied a drink." "I'm calling the effing police." And I say, "You do that," before shutting the door and popping into the lounge to watch TV while also watching them through the window. About 2 hours later, apparently the police had trouble finding my house. They arrive and speak to him before knocking on my door. "Yes, officers, how can I help?" Police 1 says, "Why are you stopping him from leaving?" So I began explaining the events of the previous days and mentioned how I told him he couldn't park here. I also explained that I had been drinking and was probably over the limit, so I couldn't risk moving my car. Both police officers agreed that I was correct to not drive while intoxicated. They then asked what insurance I had. I pointed out that it was named driver only. Basically means that only people whose name is on the insurance can drive my car, so they couldn't move it for me. "Come on, just make him move his car," he said. Second police officer says to me, "Just going to get the breathalyzer. Blow into this, please." "You're about 2 times the legal limit, so I'm sorry, but you cannot move your car." The first police officer says to him, "Sorry, but he's over the limit. You'll have to leave your car here and come back tomorrow." "What? But how are we meant to get home?" And then I say, "Bus stop's about 2 miles down the road. You'll get the bus to a city at this time or a town at this time." To which he replies, "But the bus doesn't go anywhere near where we live." The second police officer says, "We can call a taxi if you want, but you'll need to pay for it." "He did this deliberately." And I say, "Yep." Fast forward to the next day. The police arrive with him in their car, and before they ask me to move my car, they decided to have some fun. First police officer says, "We just want to check you with the breathalyzer again." Big deep breath. The Pratt is looking more and more worried. The second police officer says, "You're fine. Can you move your car, please?" And I respond, "Of course, officers." Then the first police officer says to the Pratt, "Don't park your car here again." He couldn't even look at me, just got in his car and drove off. Later that day, I decided to build a gate for my parents. That is a very creative way to teach an idiot a lesson. I mean, the nerve of that guy just driving off and saying, "And I'm going to park here again tomorrow." Who do you think you are? Oh! I am so glad this guy taught him a lesson and got a really good buzz going while at it. Alright, on that note, let's move on to the next story. Normally, I travel for a living and fly to and from Canada a couple of times a month. This happened in March, just a few days before my company started having us work from home for quarantine. Final leg of my flight home. I'm on an airline that I finally managed to build up enough status to start getting possible upgrades. This is literally the first time I've been upgraded, and it's from a standard economy seat to a bulkhead window seat. As I'm boarding the plane, there's an older lady and her approximately 5-year-old grandson in the aisle and middle seat. Grandson in middle, grandma in aisle. As I'm walking up, she is telling the kid that she's going to take the window seat just as soon as they're sure no one is sitting there. I politely inform her that someone is sitting there, me, and I take the seat. She then starts telling her 5-year-old grandson how much she wants a window seat, how sweet it would be if someone were to give up their window seat for her. I should point out that the grandson is busy playing with his iPad and clearly isn't listening at all. When I don't immediately jump up and offer her my seat, she switches tactics and starts asking the kid if he wants the window seat. How cool would it be for you to have a window seat on your first flight ever? And such. Kid still doesn't give a shit and keeps playing with his tablet, and I, again, don't rise to the obvious bait. She then grabs a flight attendant and asks if there are any open window seats. Flight attendant says she's pretty sure they're going to be a full flight, but she'll check back after boarding is done. Grandma switches back to how lovely it would be if someone would just give up their seat for her. Note, we're back to giving the seat to her. It's no longer about the kid getting the window seat for his first flight ever. At this point, I put on my headphones and ignore her. She stops trying to hint her way into my seat and just starts loudly sighing every few minutes. Note, if at any point she had simply spoken to me and asked me for my seat, I probably would have given it to her, but her passive-aggressive entitlement bullshit was never going to work with me, especially after a long day of travel. Agreed. I'm not super sure about the entitlement here, maybe you guys can better explain it to me in the comment section, but that passive-aggressive way of trying to sneak your way to somebody giving you their seat, oh man, just be upfront about it. Why do you have to go about it like, oh, if somebody would give me their seat, that would be so fantastic. If you want something, just be upfront. Be polite and upfront. Hey, you know, I would love to sit on the window for this flight. Would you mind switching with me? And then let the other person decide, but you can't get pissed or upset if they decide not to. But that passive-aggressive stuff, just sucks. Alright, let's move on to the final story. Backstory. My mom and dad split up when I was 12, and I, for one, was happy they were separated. They were not bad people. They just weren't the right people for each other. My father still hasn't been remarried, though he is dating someone right now. I don't really like her, but it's my dad's decision. My mom started dating a year after the divorce. She met my now stepfather. He had a son with him who I became quite close to, considering my biological brother went to live with my dad while I lived with my mom. When my mom announced her wedding, we were all excited. So then, stepfather's son becomes my official stepbrother. Okay, we're done with the backstory, on to the real story. My stepbrother and his girlfriend of 3 years are getting married. Now, his girlfriend just happens to be my best friend, so I was extremely excited for them. I was chosen to be the maid of honor, and my biological brother was the best man. We were all that close. My stepbrother's best friend, Butthole, was one of the groomsmen. I never really liked Butthole because he was a total creep and always tried to hit on me when stepbrother wasn't there. Stepbrother is quite protective, so I didn't tell him or he would have been arrested for murder. Also, I can stand up for myself. Anyway, once Butthole finally got a girlfriend, he stopped annoying me. So, during the planning of the wedding, nothing crazy happened apart from the normal wedding stress. We invited almost everyone we knew, and it was going to be great, or so we thought. The big day arrives and everyone is ecstatic. The ceremony was beautiful and everything went great. Then the reception came. It was going great. The groom and bride plus the bridesmaids and groomsmen were all seated at the table at the front of the venue while the guests were sitting in front of us. So they were facing our table. Everyone was giving speeches and enjoying the food. Then out of nowhere, Butthole stands up and takes the mic and says he has something important to say. We're all confused as he had finished his speech, but let him talk. I wish we hadn't. He asks his girlfriend to come up to the table and I already knew where this was going. He starts a speech on how much he loves her and how they were meant for each other. She's smiling, but I think she didn't want this to happen now of all times. He then kneels down and pulls a ring out of his pocket and asks her to marry him. She says yes. They start running around showing people the ring, all the while my best friend looked like she was gonna cry. My stepbrother and biological brother were whispering to each other. I couldn't hear what they were saying. Finally, my mom gets up to remind everyone that this was her son's wedding and that we should stop talking about someone else's engagement. Everybody was quiet. Suddenly, we hear this banshee scream. The girlfriend started screaming and crying, saying, "My mom had ruined her special day." Then Butthole began screaming at us too, claiming that he did nothing wrong. They got kicked out in the end. My brother lost his best friend that day, but he didn't really care because that idiot lost all his friends. I'm also gonna be a bit petty and say they can't even have a wedding because of COVID-19, so hope they're happy. What kind of a self-important entitled head do you have to be to propose to your girlfriend on your best friend's wedding? And also, the other girl screaming that the mom ruined her special day? Another entitled one. What the? I mean, those two are made for each other. They're a couple of blockheads. At least that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Go ahead and write it down in the comment section. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. So, I really hope you liked it. And if you did, like always, go ahead and click that like button right underneath the video. And stick around the channel for more content. I'll see you guys on the next video.